The sky above Earth was a graveyard. Burning wreckage from alien warships drifted slowly across the upper atmosphere. Some pieces fell like comets, trailing smoke and fire, crashing into oceans, mountains, and what was left of cities. Others floated, silent reminders of a war that should have ended Earth. But it didn't. Humanity had won. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the cracked stone of the New Geneva Command outpost. Once a gleaming center for global diplomacy, it was now half a ruin. Rubble surrounded her. Shattered glass crunched beneath her boots. The war was over, but the cost echoed in every corner of the planet. Ilara wore a black military coat, its fabric scorched at the edges. Her once polished armor was dulled by ash and battle scars. The wind carried the smell of metal, smoke, and death. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight she carried. Soldiers marched past, saluting her with weary hands. Their faces were tired. Some were too young to have seen so much destruction, yet old now in the eyes. Behind them, cleanup drones buzzed quietly, lifting debris and searching for survivors or remains. Ilara turned toward the landing field. A massive containment craft had just arrived, lowering its ramp. Steel cages lined the inside. Inside those cages were the highest-ranking survivors of the Galactic Union's invasion, representatives from every major alien species who had voted to enslave Earth. They had voted, all of them, 73 different species, and they had smiled while they did it. Now they were silent, beaten, powerless. One of the soldiers stepped forward. "Prisoners secured, Commander. Ready for transport to Judgment Sector." Ilara nodded. "Take them to Sector 0. Isolate them. No broadcasts. No contact." "Yes, Commander." The soldier moved quickly, barking orders. The cages were wheeled down. Inside one, Chancellor Vayrix of the Van Dominion met Ilara's eyes. He had once stood tall, a figure of dominance, layered in shining armor and adorned with medals. Now he was hunched, stripped of his glory, still proud but afraid. Ilara didn't look away. She wanted him to see her, to remember her face, humanity's face. A low rumble filled the air. Another alien ship exploded in the upper atmosphere. Delayed detonation. The fireball was visible from the ground, casting a brief red glow over the battered horizon. People looked up but didn't flinch. They were used to it now. Ilara walked through what remained of the city. Survivors lined the streets. They didn't cheer. They didn't wave flags. They just watched her pass, eyes wide with respect and grief. Some held photos of loved ones. Others sat quietly, cradling children, wrapped in blankets scavenged from relief stations. She paused beside a broken statue. It had once been a monument to peace. Now it was cracked in half. She knelt and touched the stone, brushing off the dust. "We thought peace would protect us," she whispered. "It made us blind." A child approached her. A girl, maybe 6 or 7. Dirty face, torn clothes, but bright eyes. She held out a single blue flower, one of the few things still growing in this part of the world. Ilara took it gently. "Thank you." The girl didn't speak. She just ran back to her mother. Ilara stood again and looked to the horizon. Her officers waited near a transport pod, ready to take her to the Central Command, but she took her time. The silence of victory was louder than the sounds of battle. She climbed into the pod. Inside, screens showed footage from across the globe. Burning cities, cleared bunkers, shipyards torn in half, but also signs of rebuilding. Aid workers distributing supplies, engineers repairing power grids, families being reunited. A screen showed the faces of the captured alien leaders, their names and crimes scrolled beneath their images. Ilara watched them all. The pod lifted into the sky. She stared out the window as New Geneva grew smaller below her. Earth had survived the unthinkable. Now came the harder part, deciding what to do with the galaxy that had tried to crush them. Long before the skies of Earth burned, long before cities fell and soldiers bled, there was a room, a vast floating chamber in deep space, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Union. It orbited a dying blue star in the neutral zone between galaxies. Inside, 73 alien species had gathered, each with a seat, a nameplate, and a vote. The walls shimmered with starlight from a massive window that wrapped the room. High above, the Union symbol rotated slowly, a ring of stars with a hollow center. For centuries, this council had governed peace, regulated trade, and kept order among the stars. But peace had made them proud, and pride had made them afraid. At the center stood Chancellor Verix of the Van Dominion, tall, scaled, with gold-plated skin and slitted yellow eyes. His voice echoed through the hall, calm but firm. "We face a growing threat," he said, gesturing to the image hovering above the central table. "Earth, primitive, divided, but no longer weak. The human race has discovered relics, ancient technology older than our oldest archives. If left unchecked, they will rise. And when they rise, they will not bow." He paused, letting silence work its power. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some stared at the image of Earth, green, blue, alive. Others whispered quietly to aides or looked away. A delegate from the Yerix coalition clicked his mandibles. "They are still young. Let them grow under supervision. Monitor their progress." Verix's eyes narrowed. "Monitor. They have resisted all probes. Destroyed 3 scout ships without warning. They do not wish to be part of our order. They will become our rivals." A delegate from the Shenty Hive folded her wings, her voice high and sharp. "Then we do not give them a choice." Murmurs filled the chamber. The room swayed toward agreement. Verix raised a hand, activating the voting grid. "Let us be clear. This is not war. This is control. Peace through obedience. We will descend, occupy, and educate. They will serve the Union, or they will perish in rebellion. We vote now." One by one, lights blinked across the chamber. "Yes, yes, yes." Every species. 73. Unanimous. The image of Earth rotated slowly as the room bathed in soft red light. The vote was sealed. Back on Earth, no one knew. Humanity was still recovering from its own history. A century of climate collapse, civil wars, and failed governments. But somehow, it had survived. Global unification wasn't perfect, but it was stable. Cities were being rebuilt. Space programs were growing. Satellites reached farther. Strange energy signals had been found under Antarctica, and deep scans began. Then came the skyfall. Without warning, without a message, the first wave arrived. Massive alien ships blacked out the skies over every major city. They weren't just warships. They were carriers, factories, and prisons. They brought machines that tore into the ground, looking for artifacts. They brought drones that hovered silently, scanning everything. They brought soldiers, so many soldiers. Humanity fought back with jets, tanks, and stubborn courage. But it wasn't enough. For every alien that fell, 10 more replaced them. The skies became a battlefield. The oceans boiled from energy blasts. Cities crumbled in hours. Alara Voss was a young commander then, leading a ground defense unit in Western Europe. She watched half her team die in one day. She buried friends in the mud and kept moving. They weren't supposed to win, but something changed. In Antarctica, deep below the ice, the excavation teams finally reached it. A vault sealed in alien metal, humming with power no one understood. When Earth's last surviving scientists opened it, a network activated, a defense system. It recognized Earth as its protectorate. The skies changed overnight. Unknown weapons appeared across Earth's orbit. Great beams of light cut through alien ships like paper. The system took control of orbital space. It repaired human tech, upgraded it, and turned the invaders' own machines against them. No one knew who built it, or why it had been left behind, but it was Earth's now. The war turned. Humanity pushed back. They didn't just survive. They fought like a species with nothing left to lose. With the ancient system on their side, they drove the invaders off the planet. Not once, not twice, but in every territory. The Union's fleet collapsed. What was meant to be an easy enslavement became a defeat no one had imagined. Now, months later, in the ruins of Earth's capital, Alara watched as Chancellor Verix sat inside a cold metal cage, his once polished skin dulled and cracked. He no longer wore golden robes, only grey fabric. His eyes still burned, but there was fear in them now. He looked at her as if trying to understand. "You were nothing," he whispered, "and now you hold our lives in your hands." Alara didn't respond. She just stared, calm and steady. He had voted. He had smiled. He had sent ships without warning. Now he was here, a prisoner of those he once called primitive. Earth was no longer part of the galaxy's concern. Now the galaxy was Earth's concern. The room was quiet. Deep beneath what remained of Earth's former United Nations complex, now repurposed as the Global Command Corps, Commander Ilara Voss sat alone in a circular chamber. Thick steel walls surrounded her, silent and cold. A soft hum came from the lights above, but otherwise there was nothing. No advisors, no council, just her. Before her was a single screen, split into 73 small squares. Each showed the face of a captured alien delegate. Some stared defiantly into the camera. Others kept their eyes down, ashamed. A few refused to look at all. She studied each one, her expression hard but still. She wasn't angry. Not anymore. The rage had passed. Now came the decisions. The door slid open behind her. General Mikhail Bron stepped in, broad, scarred, and one of the few survivors of the Siberian front. He had commanded the first successful counterattack with upgraded weapons after the ancient system activated. "They're secured," he said, standing at attention. Food, medical attention, containment protocols followed. Ilara nodded. "Any word from the council?" Bron shifted slightly. "Split, as expected. Half want immediate execution. The others argue for trials. Some suggest full mercy. Use this moment to build peace." She turned back to the screen. "Peace was never offered to us." "No," Bron said, his voice tight. "They didn't even speak to us before landing troops." Ilara stood. She moved to a small glass case on the wall and opened it. Inside was a worn photograph. A little girl smiling, holding a blue flower. Her niece, gone in the first wave, when New London fell. She stared at the picture for a moment, before closing the case. "Bring me Chancellor Vayrix," she said. Alone. In the interrogation room, Vayrix sat shackled to the floor, the metal cuffs wrapped tightly around his scaled wrists. The room was plain. Steel walls, a single chair, no windows. A single strip of white light ran along the ceiling. His golden skin had lost its shine. His back was hunched from confinement. Ilara entered without ceremony. No guards, no weapons, just her. Vayrix looked up. "I expected more noise, more anger." "I've had time to think," she replied, sitting across from him. "And I want to understand." He tilted his head. "Understand what? Why you did it? Why you all agreed?" Vayrix let out a dry, rattling breath. "Because we feared you, not for what you were, but what you might become." He looked her in the eyes. "We've seen it before. A young species, fast to grow, faster to fight. Your planet was chaotic, violent, unstable. Then suddenly you found balance, unity, technology. And then, the relics, that changed everything." He leaned forward slightly. "We didn't attack you because you were weak. We attacked you because you were close to being strong." Ilara said nothing for a while. "Then why not talk to us?" she asked. "Why not send envoys, speak to our leaders?" Vayrix's expression tightened. "Because your leaders lie. Your history is filled with betrayal, colonization, exploitation, genocide. We thought we were preventing another power from rising." He paused. "We became the very thing we feared." Later, Ilara walked through the ruins of what used to be a cultural center. Statues had fallen. Art was scorched. She moved past broken glass and ash-covered murals of Earth's history. Pyramids, space shuttles, world leaders holding hands. Children played near a fire barrel, while parents sorted food packages. There were no walls left, but they had built a shelter from metal scraps and tarp. People were surviving, rebuilding. She approached an old man carving names into a black stone wall. Names of the dead. He looked up. "Almost out of space," he said, voice rough. Ilara nodded. "We'll bring more stone." "I'll need it," he replied, returning to his task. That night, Alara stood before the Earth Council, a circle of 20 representatives from across the planet. The chamber was inside a mountain base, shielded and secure. It had survived the war better than most places. They waited for her judgment. She stepped into the center of the room. "I have spoken with Chancellor Varix," she said. "I have listened." He gave reasons. Logic, fear, murmurs rippled through the council. "I will not pretend to forgive. Millions are dead. Our cities are broken. But this war gave us something unexpected." She paused. Clarity. She looked at each face in the room. "We have seen what mercy looks like from them. It looked like silence, like fire falling from the sky. Now they ask for ours." She drew a breath. "We will not kill them. That is too easy." Whispers broke out again. "We will hold them, try them, and then we will put them to work. Every species that joined the invasion will contribute to rebuilding Earth, not out of kindness, out of obligation. They will repay what they took, with labor, with knowledge, with resources." She stepped back. "And the galaxy will see Earth does not forget. But Earth does not become the monster it defeats." Silence followed. Then slowly, heads began to nod. Not all, but enough. That night, Alara stood on the balcony of her quarters, watching the stars. The defense satellites still orbited above, glowing faintly, a symbol of the ancient system that had saved them, a warning to the rest of the galaxy. Peace would come, but not from surrender. It would come from strength, patience and memory. She held the small blue flower in her hand, pressed between glass, a reminder of what was lost, and what still needed protection. The stars were calm, but Earth scanners said otherwise. Far beyond the edge of Earth's orbit, something moved. A formation of ships, silent and dark, trying to stay hidden. They had no ID signatures, no distress signals, no signs of surrender. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to finish what the others couldn't. Commander Alara Voss stood in the Global Command Tower, surrounded by silent officers watching the screens. The room was cold, dim and tense. Red markers blinked on the main display, tracking the incoming ships. There were only 7 of them, smaller than the main fleets Earth had defeated, but they moved with purpose, fast, coordinated, dangerous. "They're from the Kral Clade," said Lieutenant Kima, her voice tight. "Warships, designed for frontal assault, no communication attempts, no response to warnings." Alara didn't look away from the screen. "So it's not over." Kima hesitated. "Looks like they didn't accept the Union's surrender, or maybe they just want revenge." Alara narrowed her eyes. "Or they think we've gone soft." The room was quiet. The officers waited for her command. "Prepare the orbital cannons. Scramble the sky fleet." No warnings this time. The ships came fast. They broke into Earth's orbit like spears, diving through the upper atmosphere with shields glowing. People on the ground looked up and ran for cover. Sirens echoed through cities still under repair. The defense system activated in seconds, the ancient grid lighting up the sky with glowing beams that tracked every movement. The first Kral ship dove toward the African defense zone. It was met with a direct energy pulse from Station Theta, slicing the craft in half. It didn't explode. It simply fell apart, broken by power far beyond its understanding. 2 more followed, trying to flank. Earth's upgraded fighters met them in the air, human pilots in newly enhanced ships, their weapons fused with alien tech. The battle was brief and brutal. Red and blue trails carved across the sky. 1 fighter went down, but 5 enemy ships followed it. On the ground, anti-orbital cannons opened fire. Thunder echoed through the skies. In less than 20 minutes it was over. 6 ships destroyed, 1 disabled. The last Kral ship floated in low orbit, its engines crippled, hull cracked open like a wounded animal. Alara stood in the central command chamber, watching the live feed. Her jaw was tight. "They knew we had the power to stop them," Brun said beside her. "They came anyway." Alara nodded slowly. "That's what makes them dangerous. Pride without logic." She turned to communications. "Open a channel. One way. Let's see if they want to talk." A moment later, the alien commander's face appeared on the screen, battered, blood-streaked, but still upright. His armor was scorched. His voice was low and raspy. "We do not beg," he said. "You should start." Alara replied coldly. He glared at her. You fight like monsters. You stole power that wasn't yours. Alara's voice was steady. You invaded a world that asked for peace. You gave no warning, no terms, and now you cry because we didn't die quietly. The Krull commander coughed. Blood leaked from his mouth. Kill me then. We will rise again. Alara leaned forward slightly. You already fell. You just didn't hear the impact. She ended the transmission. The disabled ship was towed into orbit near Lunar Station. The crew, what little remained, was captured. No executions, no tortures, just silence, cold cells and a planet below that refused to fall. The world exhaled. Alara walked through the halls of Lunar Station, passing engineers and defense officers. Some saluted, most just nodded, tired, relieved, grateful. She stopped at the observation deck, staring down at Earth. The damage was still visible, cities scarred, oceans dark in places, but lights were coming back. People were rebuilding. Brun joined her, arms crossed. They're watching, he said. The rest of the galaxy, every planet, every system. They want to see what we'll do. Let them watch, Alara said. Let them learn. Later, in her private chamber, she recorded a message. It would be sent to every known system. No music, no symbols, just her face. This is Commander Alara Voss of Earth. You voted to enslave us. You sent ships to break our will. You failed. She paused, letting the words settle. We will not become what you were. We will not conquer. We will not destroy. But we will remember. Her eyes were sharp, her voice calm. Earth is not a prize. Earth is not a colony. Earth is not your future. It is ours. We will protect it. And we will never kneel again. She ended the message. The next day, the Krull were moved to a secure lunar facility. Alara watched from the shuttle bay as the last prisoner stepped out. He paused and looked back at her. His glare was full of hatred. She returned it with silence. War had returned one final time, and it had lost again. The courtroom was unlike any on Earth. It was built deep inside the Andes Mountains, shielded by layers of stone, metal, and old-world silence. Lights hung from the ceiling like stars, cool and white. There were no cameras, no reporters, no broadcast feeds. This was not for show. This was for truth. In the center stood a wide, circular platform. 73 alien delegates stood on it, separated by transparent containment fields. They were no longer dressed in robes or armor. Each wore the same plain uniform, gray with a single white line across the chest. Even Chancellor Varix stood stripped of all rank, his golden skin dulled, his once firm voice now quiet. Around them, Earth's council sat in elevated chairs, 12 in total, each representing a major continent or population zone. They had not come to negotiate. They had come to decide. Commander Alara Voss stood at the center, not behind a podium, not above them. Among them, there were no walls here, only silence. She began without introduction. You voted to enslave Earth. No one interrupted her. You arrived without a warning, without a message. You sent machines. You sent soldiers. You tore open our skies and crushed our cities. And you called it order. Her voice was steady, not loud, but it carried through the room like steel. Today we give judgment, not out of hatred, not out of fear, but because order, true order, requires justice. She turned slowly, letting her eyes fall on each alien leader. You will not be executed. We do not lower ourselves to that level. Some aliens showed visible signs of relief. Varix said nothing. But you will not go free. A large panel on the wall lit up. It displayed a list: rebuilding projects, resource shipments, medical aid deployments. The screen scrolled slowly, listing hundreds of tasks. You will work, Alara said. Each species, each government. You will help restore what you tried to destroy. You will provide labor, technology, food, and healing. Every city, every shore, every family that lost a home or a child will be repaid, not with words but with action. She looked toward Varix. You will remain on Earth during this process, not as prisoners but as workers, under guard, under oath. The galaxy will watch. And when it is done, if it is done, you may return home. Varix finally spoke. You would make us servants. Alara shook her head. No, I make you responsible. The council voted silently, one by one, hands raised. All 12, unanimous. The sentence was passed. Outside the courtroom, the mountain winds howled. The stars above were sharp and still. Earth had spoken. Alara walked alone through the halls of the command facility. She passed maps marked with damage zones, engineers working around the clock, aid coordinators directing supplies to cities still in the dark. Every screen showed progress. Slow, painful, real. A child waved to her from a corridor. Dirty face, bright eyes. Alara smiled gently and waved back. She entered a quiet room at the top of the mountain. There, waiting, was an elder, a historian from Nairobi, keeper of Earth's memory. She had been gathering names, dates, and truths since the war began. Is it done? The elder asked. Alara nodded. The vote was passed. They will stay and work. The elder nodded slowly. Good. They will know our pain, not through death, but through duty. They'll hate us for it. Alara said quietly. They already did, the elder replied. But now they will understand us. Days later, a galactic envoy arrived in orbit. The other species that hadn't voted, smaller neutral planets, had questions. They wanted to see what Earth would do. They expected revenge. They got law. Alara stood at the center of a press conference inside the orbital station. She addressed representatives from dozens of worlds. You will not fear Earth, she told them, but you will respect it. She explained the judgment, the decision not to destroy, but to rebuild. Some called it mercy. Others called it wisdom. A few whispered that Earth was now more dangerous than ever, not because of its weapons, but because of its restraint. Back on Earth, the aliens were escorted to work zones. No chains, no torture, just orders. They helped rebuild broken homes. They repaired satellites. They cleared rubble from roads. Some grumbled, some complied. A few apologized. Human soldiers watched quietly, guns holstered, eyes sharp, and Earth healed. That night Alara stood on the balcony of the Andes facility, looking down at the valley lit with torches and drones. Rebuilding camps stretched for miles. People were working, talking, sharing food with former enemies. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was happening. Bran joined her. They expected fire, he said. They got fire, she replied. Just not the kind that burns. She closed her eyes, feeling the wind on her face. It was cold but clean. The stars above no longer looked threatening. They looked like possibilities. The world had changed. Months had passed since the trial beneath the Andes. The skies were no longer filled with smoke, and the stars no longer brought fear. For the first time in generations, Earth was quiet, not silent. There was work, rebuilding, healing, but quiet in a way that meant survival. Life was returning. In New Geneva, a city once shattered by orbital bombardment, towers now stood wrapped in scaffolding. Drones buzzed overhead, moving metal beams and glass panels. Roads were being repaired. Gardens bloomed where rubble once lay. Schools reopened. Children played again, and among the workers were aliens, once invaders, now bound to Earth by justice. They wore plain uniforms, no weapons, no command. They cleared debris, repaired solar grids, and purified water systems. Some did it with pride, others with shame, a few with resentment. But all of them worked, and Earth watched. Commander Alara Voss walked through a construction zone near the southern district. Her coat was worn, but her posture was firm. Soldiers nodded as she passed, but she gave no orders. She only observed. She paused beside a group of humans and aliens lifting heavy solar panels into place. One of the aliens, a six-limbed Zarlite, looked up. He didn't flinch when he saw her. He simply nodded and kept working. That was new. Alara moved on, her boots crunching against gravel. She reached a memorial park, just opened that week. Black stones stood in a circle, each carved with names of the fallen. Over 60 million lost during the invasion. Some of the stones still had blank space. More names were still being found. She stepped to the center, A small sculpture stood there, a single blue flower carved from crystal. Beneath it, a plaque read, "We did not fall, we rose." She stood still for a long time, letting the wind touch her face. There was peace in the silence, not the peace of surrender, the peace of earned survival. Later, Alara sat in a meeting chamber at the newly formed Earth Assembly. It was smaller than the old United Nations, fewer seats, fewer speeches, but far more united. Representatives from every continent were present, along with observers from several alien species. They had come not as rulers or conquerors, but as guests. The agenda was simple: Earth's future in the galaxy. A woman from East Asia stood and spoke first. "We now have the means to travel beyond. The ancient defense system has given us access to new engines, new power sources. We can go farther than ever." A man from South America added, "But we go not to conquer. We go to learn, to connect. We lead by example, not by force." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Alara stood last. She said only a few words. "The galaxy saw us as a target. They were wrong. Now they see us as a threat. Let them. But from this day on, Earth walks forward, with strength, with memory, and with choice." She sat down. The room was quiet, not out of fear, but out of respect. Days later, a final ceremony was held. The ancient defense system still orbiting Earth was put into standby mode, not destroyed, not forgotten, just silent, waiting, in case it was ever needed again. The weapons went dark. The satellites stopped tracking. The power shifted from war to watchfulness. A message was sent across the stars: Earth does not seek control, we seek balance. Come in peace, or don't come at all. That evening, Alara returned to her home, what was left of it. A small house near the ruins of old Berlin. Her niece's photograph sat on the shelf. Next to it, the glass frame holding the dried blue flower the little girl once gave her. She stepped outside and looked up at the stars. No ships, no lights, just the sky. She breathed in the cold night air. Bron's voice came through her communicator. "Council's meeting again tomorrow. Topics expansion. Thought you'd want to be there." "I will," she said quietly, "but not tonight." "Understood, Commander." The signal ended. Alara looked back at the sky. "We're still here," she whispered. The war had taken everything, but Earth had given something back in return, its will, and now the galaxy would know it forever.